Had Coventry won that game 4-3, that's the greatest FA Cup game ever.
We are in the grip of a racist far-right government. And this is a moment of great shame for this country.
Jordan, you're in charge. You can redesign the English flag to represent England today. What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of the Whisper It Loudly podcast, episode 9, I believe we're on. We're moving. I'm Jordan, Jarrett, Bryan. We'll get to the man to my left who hasn't been here. You might think, who's this stranger? He's not been here for a while. Hugh Wozencroft is not going to be with us this week because he is busy and tied up, but he will be back next week for sure. A big thank you once again to Marvin Harrison for coming on the pod last week. It was a great episode with lots of thoughtful and interesting points made that caused lots of debates amongst all the comments and sections of where we posted all of our clips. If you're not following us across our socials, please do so. We are across Instagram. We are now on TikTok, and we're here on your favorite podcast platform and YouTube as well. Share, comment, subscribe, all that goodness as well. Right, so the man to my left, again, this is Darren Lewis, everybody. You might not recognize him. He's been missing for a while, but you're back. You saying?
I'm good. I've been a bit busy, had a few bits and pieces to do, but I see that you've been holding the fort almost single-handedly at times.
Well, someone's got to, Darren, you know what I mean? But yeah, we've missed you for sure. And if anybody has any doubt about my love for Mr. Lewis, I'm hanging around you way too much. I've just realised I'm literally dressed like you. So it wasn't even intentional, everyone. It wasn't even planned. I've got the Darren Lewis roll neck, but not because I was planning to dress like him, but just same colour trousers. Look, same colour trousers, same shoes.
Same shoes, you see, you're pulling it up.
Glasses.
It's a little bit like The Office.
I've got hair though, you haven't got hair. That's the only difference.
And you're rocking it, to be fair.
So yeah, that wasn't intended, but we are.
Anything happen while I've been away?
Quite a bit. But listen, let's get straight into the best of the weekend's football action. You know, by now we discuss football and sport. We'll get to some political issues later on, and a little bit of talk at the end, which Darren will be taking over later on. Football. I want to kick off with what was probably the biggest off the field football story of the weekend. Nottingham Forest with their statement. So those that don't know, if you don't, you should. But they lost a very important game in the Premier League. And some would say three decisions went against them wrongly in many people's view. And they weren't happy. Within an hour of the final whistle. It was less than that, wasn't it? They had, in fact, it was pretty much straight after the game.
Came absolutely. Out. They were drafting it.
They were during the game.
The second half.
They issued an official statement, which I'll get to in a second. But what I think is also important to mention is that they, earlier this year, appointed the former Premier League referee, Mark Clattenburg, also of Gladiators fame, I'm told, as in kind of an advisory role within the club. They issued a statement. I won't read the whole statement, but I'll read a bit of a chunk of it out. Nottingham Forest issued a statement highlighting our concern at the perception of the PGMOL appointment of VAR for the game. That concern being that one of the VAR officials was a Luton supporter. This was an issue that we raised with the PGMOL prior to the fixture because of the fear of a sideshow that would ensure if anything went wrong with officiating in the game. That fear has materialised as the correctness of three important decisions against the club have been called into doubt. And on a separate statement, they end it by saying, we're going to consider our options after the defeat at Goodison Park. Now, just on that last line, first of all, I don't know what that means. We're going to consider our options. I don't understand. What are you going to do? It's like being in the playground. It's like, I'm going to beat you up. But it's like, you're 4 years below me. Like, you're not going to do anything. You can talk the talk, but what are you going to do? Sort of thing. So that baffled me. But also, Darren, the comments from Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville, which were straight after the game, took the side of the statement being embarrassing and very much a nonsense. But a few hours later, it became quite clear to me that many fans, I was listening to various podcasts, various fan channels, WhatsApp groups popping off, various fans were actually in agreement with the statement. Now, we can argue about whether it was poorly worded, but the sentiment that something needs to be done because we can't continue with the level of incompetence, as some people put it, something's got to be done about that. And they were backing the Forest statement in that this was extreme but needed. What were your thoughts on the statement, and where do you side in terms of, was it an embarrassment for the Nottingham Forest Football Club, or actually does something need to be done now? It's gone too far.
Right, so there are a couple of places to start. The first place is the decision making, because on the day, at least two, for me, of the decisions were wrong. And so often we see matches where something looks as though it's a penalty and the evidence of our own eyes is screaming out to us one thing, but then you'll hear on the TV, check complete, and you'll think to yourself, I don't care if it's check complete, that's a penalty. Yeah, Andre Onana cleans out one of the Wolves players at the start of the season, but Wolves don't get a penalty. The Luis Diaz situation for Liverpool, where they scored a goal at Tottenham, against Tottenham, but the goal isn't given, and they've already given check complete, and you're thinking, I don't care if that's check complete, that's wrong. There have been any number of situations involving Stuart Atwell. Anybody listening to this only has to go away and Google it, and some of them have involved your club. I remember the game against Newcastle, Stuart Atwell is involved. Every single game Stuart Atwell is involved in, there are issues relating to that game. Now, that said, I still have a problem with Nottingham Forest's statement, because I agree with the sentiment behind it. We have reached crisis point with VAR and the way that it's implemented in this country. But, and it's a big, big but, I wholeheartedly disagree with Forest and side with Stuart Atwell over the inference that he's a cheat, and calling his support for Luton out and suggesting it influenced his decision making, because that too is beyond the pale. And there are lots of people, when you point that out on social media, saying, oh, you were in the media bubble, you're in the pay of this, that and the other. That inference that he's a cheat is defamatory. It affects his reputation. Calling his integrity into question, it's defamatory. It was, things cannot be right because Terry3678 on Twitter says it is. You cannot go around calling people corrupt, a cheat, fraudulent, all of those. You simply cannot do it. And if somebody were to suggest you, Jordan, on the basis of something, an honestly held opinion you might have here, are corrupt, are a cheat, or whatever else, you could quite rightly take legal recourse. That's what the law is there for. And there are too many people on social media who don't understand. You are a publisher. If you are making that kind of allegation, don't be surprised if the subject of that allegation responds to it in a way with the law, basically. So that's the reason why I felt Forest were wrong. No football club should be putting that kind of statement out, inferring that the people in charge of the game are cheats. And had they not done that, they would have had huge sympathy. Had they come out and said, you know what, we are going to complain to the Premier League. We need a summit meeting. We want to get all of the clubs together. We have reached crisis point. This has happened to us too many times. Wolves will say absolutely. Liverpool, I just mentioned, would say absolutely, because those 3 points could be the difference between them winning and losing the title. There'll be so many clubs up and down the country, and journalists, let's not kid ourselves, who would have been on their side. But you mentioned I'm the president of the Sports Journalists Association many times, right? In my position, there is no way I am going to sit and validate any statement that calls into question an official's integrity without just cause.
So do you think it was intentional? Because it's such an extreme thing to do for a football club to, as you say, essentially accuse an individual of cheating. They're inferring, let's be fair.
It's
but
a
they're
definite
inferring
inference.
that because
He
he
could
supports
sue
said club,
on the basis of that
he
statement.
could, but for them to do that is they're not stupid. I'm wondering if it was intentional because they thought we're going to do something extreme here, and if we have to infer that there's some cheating going on or there's some unfair play going on, that's the only way we're going to shake this table and get change.
But I can't see it because that statement has shattered Mark Clattenburg's credibility now and his relationship with his fellow former referees. It's affected the credibility of the owner. I think there's an understanding that the owner is as he should be, he owns the club. He has every right to take decisions and say to the people in his employ, this is what I want to say. But I don't see the logic in putting out a statement that is defamatory, potentially defamatory towards any individual or organisation in relation to the events on the field. What he should have done was said, we are disgusted by this. We can point to a litany of cases where the VAR, the implementation of VAR, has been absolutely abject. He could have done what I would say the Vinicius Junior thing. When people said, you're saying that there's racism in Spanish football, it's not true. And he said, hang on a minute, here are 10 examples. Right there and then. Nobody could argue. That's what they could have done. And they would easily have been able to get 10 examples, 20 from this season, half of which would have involved Stuart Atwell. He would have had simply what they succeeded in doing, Nottingham Forest, was remarkably garnering sympathy for the officials rather than for themselves. And they are the ones with whom we should have been most sympathetic. One last thing on that as well. You're an Arsenal fan. I'm a Liverpool fan. Listen, everybody watches it, knows it. But does that stop me from doing my job in the Premier League? No. Do I think the optics, once it had been a thing last week, of Stuart still doing the game were not great? I probably do. And me personally, even if it had come up, if there is even the scintilla of conjecture around the appointment of an individual, then I would say, look, let's get him off there. Let's not leave anything that could be thrown against us. But, and it's a big but, my supporting Liverpool does not stop me from being critical of them if they do or say something, or if they perform badly or whatever.
But is the difference though that me being an Arsenal fan and making a judgment on a decision that affects my team, I can do that as a journalist in the kind of cold, calm light of day, whereas is it not possible? We're human beings.
No,
is it not?
No,
I'm just asking. Is it not possible that when you are in the heat of the battle, that human biases, no matter how professional you are, come to the fore or could come to the fore?
In a word, no. And I don't want to mince words over that. I defend Stuart Atwell to the hilt over this because he is somebody who goes into a game. All referees go into a game to do the job. I remember when Luis Suarez was racially abusive. He obviously was banned for a number of games towards Patrice Evra.
Yeah.
My support for Liverpool was not even an issue. I condemned him. I loved the player, but the act, disgusting. The handling of it by Liverpool, disgusting.
But that's a good example because, again, some of the Liverpool players who were black or mixed race did defend Luis Suarez. And is that not because in the heat of the battle, your bias towards your teammate, it wouldn't for me, but the bias towards a teammate superseded what was actually right?
No, but the difference is this. They're teammates, so they will have that bias. Our jobs, you in broadcast, me in print, are to sit in judgment in terms of the performance, in terms of the handling, and there's a lot of partisan opinion within football. But for me, looking at that, the handling of the club was poor. They acknowledged it eventually. His conduct was poor. My job is to use my platform to say it's poor. Whether I support them or not, and historically have done that since John Barnes played for them, doesn't matter one bit.
But your point is, club allegiances aside, right is right, wrong is wrong, right? Right. But in that example, there were Liverpool players who were black and mixed race.
But you keep bringing up Liverpool players.
No, because
their position is different to ours.
But the principle's the same. The principle is right is right, wrong is wrong.
No. Well,
those black players,
I hear you.
They would know that what Suarez did was wrong. But in that moment, they sided with Suarez because of bias.
Yes, but what I'm saying to you is that they are in a different position to us. They have a relationship with him, but their job is not to, in your case, broadcast to millions of people. In my case, write in a national paper,
but where there are
consumed by
examples,
millions of
the
people.
referee is the example here. I'm not saying the referee was biased. I'm just asking the question, is it possible that bias can come into play? For example, the weekend we saw Coventry play against Manchester United. That Wan-Bissaka penalty, it's nowhere near a penalty. It's not. But is there a possibility? I don't think anybody. I've not heard anybody say.
All decisions are subjective. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks. All decisions are subjective.
But I've not heard one person say that's a pen. When something is unanimously agreed,
I thought it was a penalty.
You thought it was a penalty?
Yeah.
You're the first person that I've heard this weekend. I've heard even Coventry fans on blog say. Okay. But my point being, is it not possible that he got caught up in the moment, the referee, Coventry, great story here, that's a pen?
No, and I wouldn't want to, no, I don't think so, A, and B, I don't want to get caught up in any conversation to suggest that there could be anything other than objectivity in the decision-making process with the referees. And nobody can unless they have incontrovertible evidence to the contrary. And I think we're going down a really slippery slope if we give any kind of encouragement to any debate that suggests either referees are corrupt or the organisation that employs them are corrupt. If you're asking me around whether there is a conversation around bringing down the average age, looking better at competency, improving and reinvigorating the refereeing talent pool on merit, I'd say yes, but that's a different conversation altogether. But Forest have lost sympathy because instead of taking an opportunity to shine a light on an urgently needed conversation around VAR and the merits of the performance of our referees, they instead made a potentially defamatory allegation against two entities, and now there are two ongoing investigations into them, whereas it should have been a spotlight shone on the refereeing fraternity.
Well, just to end, I was going to ask that question: where does this end for Forest, and where do you think it should end? What should be now the response to their statement?
I don't know the answer to that. I have to be honest, and it will be interesting to see where it ends, because I mean, the Premier League announced an investigation into them, and the FA. Now, the FA could find them, but I don't know what the Premier League would do, because there isn't a precedent for this kind of thing in the Premier League before, where a club has accused a referee. Not that I can recall, anyway. So it's hard to know in both cases. I don't think we're talking about fines. I don't think in either case we're talking about points, because there isn't a precedent for that, as far as I know.
But should there be set one? And this is, I don't want to quote Gary Neville too much, but again, the inference of what he was saying is they should be punished, because this has to stop. We can't have football teams accusing institutions of cheating.
I agree.
And he listed a couple of examples where Liverpool spoke about, wanting to, I don't know if they actually said they wanted to replay the Spurs game, but there was inference from Klopp that we should be talking about the possibility, at least, of replaying the game. Mikel Arteta, his comments after the Newcastle game, I thought were out of order as well. Teams are getting brave now and just saying the mad thing just because they're upset.
Do you know?
It's got to be shut down.
You said we're going to bring this to end, so I will end by saying this, because I think this is really important. In December, we saw a referee in Turkey assaulted on the pitch by people from a team who are unhappy with the decision.
He got beat up bad, yeah.
and it was a disgusting moment. It's easily accessible on social media, even now on the internet, and it gave everyone across European football pause in terms of the way that we refer to referees, because we live in a society now, let's not kid ourselves, where there are idiots who take things to their extreme. These people who were involved in this assault, they were people who worked for the club at a senior level, and yet we had a referee who was assaulted. We can't go down that road in this country, and that's why this entire conversation and the climate that we are creating, where yes, there is scrutiny on referees, and yes, there are lots of emotions involved, but God forbid we get to a stage where a referee is assaulted because of a climate that's being created by the kind of discourse that is reaching fever pitch in this country.
I think the climate's been created as well, which is why it's dangerous for Forest to do what they did. Was it's now enabling fans to blur the lines of genuine anger about awful decisions with a level of entitlement that when things go, I often always say there's a difference between a wrong decision and a shocker. As an Arsenal fan, I can accept and sleep well anyway, but I can sleep better if there's a wrong decision against my club. Yeah. That wasn't a penalty. That should have been. Referees are human beings, right?
Absolutely.
That's different to a shocker. And I think what Forest have done with this statement is, albeit two of the decisions I thought were shocking, they've still enabled probably a lot of their fan base to now be so vexed by anything that goes against them. The end game could be that they feel like there's an agenda against their team, which can lead to them doing the matting and doing what we saw in other countries. And that can't be allowed.
What happens is every club believes there's a conspiracy against their team and that everyone's in it. And when there are dissenting voices, you're in it as well.
Yeah.
You get caught up. And we need that. If you add that to our social media climate where it's more entertaining if you're more angry.
Yeah.
It's all a perfect storm heading in a very, very dangerous direction. And it's the reason why we cannot give any encouragement whatsoever to a conversation that says, well, might he just be a little... No, I'm sorry, and I'm not defending anybody who's going to be going down that road. If they want to get people to sit around a table and say, what are we going to do about the fact that there are so many poor decisions, obviously poor decisions, that are affecting the product? That's a really constructive way to go about it. Now, some people might say, well, they tried that before. I don't see that. And because of the size and because of the seniority of the person who is driving this, and because of the point of the season that we have reached, where the points are crucial, it would have been a perfect point to say we need to have this conversation. But I'm sorry, I do not want to be part of any suggestion that a referee is corrupt, and God forbid we get to a place where somebody turns around and says that on that basis of that suggestion, I'm going to take the law into my own hands, and then suddenly we're back here on this podcast talking about what are we going to do to protect referees.
Let's hope we don't get to that stage, because those are definitely worrying times for sure. Let's move on now to issues on the pitch. Go through quickly three issues I thought were worth kind of talking about. Let's start with Man United and Ten Hag, because the heat's on. It's hot. It's hot in the kitchen right now. It is hot for my man. Winners eventually in their semi-final against Coventry. Yeah. Not in the most of convincing ways. And I can't be a hypocrite. I'm one of the people that believes that in league performances matter, in cups just win. So I can't have that mantra.
Really?
And then I think in cup competition, just win. Okay. I don't care about how you play. I don't care about it's 7 games to win a World Cup. It's 7 games to win, maybe 8 or 9 to win it's not many. Just win, lift the cup.
Okay. Let me ask you this. I'll put it on you. I want you to tell me the last time you were really impressed by a Manchester United performance.
I asked that very question to Hugh, I think it was 2 weeks ago. And because I can't remember a game, even this season, I've seen United play well and win and think they were the better team. So I take that. But from the perspective of this particular game in the cup, just win, just get to the final. That I think I can't be a hypocrite, because I think in cup competitions it's just about winning. However, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. 3-0 up. I actually think, question for you before we get into Ten Hag, I actually was thinking today on the way here, had Coventry won that game 4-3, that's the greatest FA Cup game ever.
It's the greatest FA Cup win ever.
Can you think of a better game? I mean, the United Arsenal game is obviously up there.
Yeah,
before I was alive.
I think
that's got to be the greatest FA Cup game of all time.
There are a few, but I think you might be right. From 3-0 down against a superpower, yeah,
that's a great game. That's two Premier League teams.
Yeah, absolutely.
But a Championship team.
I think you might be right.
I was thinking, can I think of a better FA if they'd have won?
Yeah,
was there a better FA Cup? That's the best.
I mean, there have been some incredible,
of course,
comebacks, wins, upsets, but that might have been the best.
Not 3-0 down.
Although but then some people might turn around and say, well, there have been wins for clubs who have where the distance between the two teams in the pyramid has been far greater.
Of course, but 3-0.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yeah, you might be right.
I'd love to see some stats on percentages of teams that have come back in any league across any competition from being 3-0 down.
Well, Liverpool did in the Champions League final of 2005.
True. I know Newcastle were 4 down against Arsenal.
And you drew, didn't you?
We drew 4-4 in the end.
Yeah.
But for them to have won it.
Yeah.
And Liverpool and Milan, there's levels.
Yeah.
Man United and Coventry, like, come on, that's... Anyways.
Well, you're right, because Coventry were ground sharing 3 years ago. Yes. They'd lost 3 of their previous 4 matches.
And they're not even top-end Championship.
Exactly. They're 7th in the Championship.
8th.
And, well, yeah, after last...
Sorry.
Recording.
When recording.
Sorry. But the point is that the scale of the upset, and had they won, I think it may have been that Ten Hag would have had to have been sacked that night. You don't lose. The thing about Ten Hag is,
and also, sorry, to be fair to Hugh, he did semi-call it. He didn't say they were going to win, but as a man that covers the EFL, he did say Coventry will not be overwhelmed by Wembley. They play good football and they've got decent players. So he did semi-call it.
Well, the thing about Hugh is that Hugh is, for those people who don't know, he's an EFL expert. He presents it. You should watch him. He's terrific on this show. So he knows all about the context around the EFL clubs. He sees them on a regular basis. So we swear by his view. I remember on Sunday I was watching the game, and obviously there were lots of games on at the same time, including Liverpool. So my son said, "Are we not watching the game?" And it's 3-0. Then that's it. And I was like, "No, let's watch this game." United is still...
It's not done yet. Trust me. 4 maybe, but a 3.
Maybe,
no.
exactly.
This animal's still alive. They're not dead yet.
By the time they scored the 3rd, my son looked at me as if he went, "I think you might actually know something about football."
Put some respect on Dad's name.
But I think had they won, I think the shockwaves would have reverberated around the world, and I think Ten Hag would have been done. I still think he is.
So do I. Just brief story. I remember the very first time that I said, as an Arsenal fan, Wenger out. I remember the game. I don't remember anything, but I remember the game. It was the 7-5 win against Reading.
Okay.
And I remember vividly, because my friend Abby was on the phone to me when the game was on. We were 4-0 down, and I think Walcott scored just before half-time. And I said to my friend, I don't care what the result is now. Regardless, he has to go.
Yeah.
We won the game 7-5 in the end, but he has to go. And I stuck by that. It's a similar vibe I've got here. It doesn't almost really... It got to a point where, because I was at work during this game, I said to my colleague, it doesn't really matter now what the result is.
No.
I don't think he can survive. And I don't want to... I made a promise last year that I wouldn't advocate for managers to be sacked and get them out. I've got my views on Ten Hag and all that, and let's have that chat when Hugh's here, because being a United fan, he's got strong views on Ten Hag. It's probably better that he leads that conversation. But it feels like if you're the owners watching that, you can't have any faith that even with a better infrastructure, even with another 300 million to spend, you're not showing me enough to show that, granted, the players aren't great, but even with the poor players, You're not showing me anything to suggest that with better players, you will definitely do better. So I think that he's done. The links and reports around Southgate, around today it's Tuchel, they're so strong. There's often no smoke without fire. I think the briefing is out there that this guy won't be here next season. But what I want to focus on more so is, what is the type of manager, if it's not Ten Hag, do you think Man United need to be going for and appointing for next season, with the caveat that he's not there next season?
Well, I don't think he will be there next season. I think Ineos have come in, and if you look at what they've done so far, they've made a series of changes at the higher level. Omar Barada's come in, Jason Wilcox has come in, Dan Ashworth has come in. They've looked at the top of the structure and they've basically wiped it out. You don't do that if you're happy with what you're seeing. And the next thing they will do is wipe out replace the manager. Now, Ten Hag is a good manager.
I think so
and
too.
he's a good man as well. And I don't want to sit here traducing someone who's trying for their life. We're all in positions that are, relatively speaking, there to be shot at. And it's the easiest thing in the world to really hammer him. But he's a good guy trying to do a job. But there are good managers who came before him who just couldn't do it because of the structure, because of the way that things worked. And I think United have looked at the settled structure and the cohesiveness at City, at Arsenal, where Edu works hand in glove with Mikel Arteta, at Liverpool, and seen the recruitment and the joined up thinking at all those clubs. And they've said to themselves, we need to do that here. And I think this is going to be a transformative summer for the club, because I think as well as Ten Hag leaving, there'll be a number of players that will go as well, underachieving players. If you judge Ten Hag by the players that he's brought in, Anthony is a £72 million flop. Single figure goals, single figure assists, lots of
single figures is kind. We're talking like 2 and 3.
Exactly, it's embarrassing for the expenditure, and he's his marquee signing. A couple of the others, Malacia, he's hardly ever fit. Martinez, hardly ever fit.
Mount.
Exactly, and Mount was a wonderful player at Chelsea. I still do think there is a wonderful player there, and it will hurt Ten Hag when he goes and another manager comes in, and suddenly the level goes up and the consistency goes up. But that side is not playing like a side with consequences for poor performance. Yeah. And that's the reason why I think he's going to go. So if you're asking me which kind of manager is going to come in, it will be a manager in whom the hierarchy have total faith. And it'll be a manager for whom, or rather with whom, the hierarchy will stand by if it comes down to him or a player. Because I think there have been a lot of players who cost a lot of money, so have to play, or lots of players. So if he doesn't play particularly well and Ten Hag tries to bench him, they turn around and say, why is he not playing? We're paying him X amount of pounds a week. We paid a fortune for him, get him on the bench. But I just think, I look at Jadon Sancho in the Champions League semi-final with Borussia Dortmund when he should be playing for Manchester United, and the man management should be able to accommodate any failings. He's a young man, he's going to make mistakes, you've got to find a way.
I actually don't blame, and I'm a fan of Sancho, I actually don't blame Ten Hag for that one.
See, I do, because I think if your job, the clue's in the name, your job is to manage.
I agree, but I think that one is more about, I'm just not sure that Jadon Sancho has the mentality to perform at the elite level that's required at a club like Manchester United.
Then it's your job as a manager to be able
you say that, but if you haven't got it, you haven't got it. If you haven't got that mentality, I can coach you how to be a better player. I can't coach you how to deal with the demands of playing at a club like Manchester United. I think some players just don't have that. I mean, we've seen over the years, lots of players at big clubs struggle, go to another club and rip it up. Because some clubs are just too big.
No, I don't buy that. And I think the proof will be in the pudding. When the next manager comes in, I think
we'll see.
He comes back, he plays, and he rips it up. And people will say, why couldn't that happen under Ten Hag? Well, the reason why I think is because Ten Hag tactically is very good, but I don't think he has the man management skills to be able to manage a club as big as Manchester United.
Okay. A couple quick ones as well. Mohamed Salah, are we seeing the decline of one of the Premier League greats?
No, not at
Well,
all.
he's not on the incline, is he?
Well, listen, he lives his life the right way. He doesn't drink or smoke. He went away mid-season to the AFCON and he picked up an injury there. He's not been the same since then. But I think that he's still a magnificent player, and it's just taking him a bit of time to get back to where he was. But are we seeing the decline? No, not for a player like him. He's a fantastic player. We are in an era where the likes of Ronaldo and Lewandowski, you look that they play deep into their 30s. Why? Because they live their lives the right way. They keep themselves fit. They do the right things to be able to prolong their careers. And Salah, in relative terms, he's still very young. There's a lot more football to come from Salah. If you're asking me whether it's going to be in the Premier League, that's a different matter altogether. I think it will be somewhere else, Saudi Arabia. But I think as far as he's concerned, no, he's not on the decline.
Still think Liverpool win the title?
That's a question.
Ooh. Go ahead. Just say no, Darren. We haven't got long. Like, we know the answer. Like, just say no.
I'm gonna have to waver and say City now, because City, it's almost like a horse that's won a race 5 of the last 6 years, knows every inch of the course, and they hit the front turning for home. They're not going to lose it from here. Arsenal got the best defence, but they're playing a couple of teams now that could. Chelsea, okay, Cole Palmer's not playing, which means for me, Arsenal will win that.
Is that definite now? Because I heard that he had an illness.
Well, the Pochettino seemed to be inferring that if, and obviously this pod might come out after the game, I don't know. It depends how good Dan is.
no pressure, Dan. Hurry up. In fact, are you editing right now? The thumbnail and the graphics right now? Because by the time this finishes, this has got to go out.
But the inference was that even if he did recover from the illness, he wouldn't play. It's too important to Chelsea. Okay. Whether he's lying about that, I don't know. But no Cole Palmer, no Chelsea win. He is the everything. If I'm his agent, I'm going and knocking on the door at the end of this season.
Well, I want to just mention briefly on Arsenal their next 2 games, but just on Cole Palmer, is it completely wild of me to suggest that someone could get him out of there this summer?
Yes. There's no way that Chelsea will let him get out of there now. They know what they have. And if I'm Pochettino, I'll say I couldn't care less who you sell, but he stays
but if you're,
at all costs.
You mentioned Palmer's agent. If you're his agent, are you thinking he's just potentially won the golden boot? It's gone to the Euros, ripped it up. Madrid won him.
Madrid wouldn't want him.
All right, United won him.
Why would you leave Chelsea to go to United?
Because United have just appointed, I don't know, De Zerbi.
I'm staying at Chelsea.
I tried, Cole. I tried.
No, I
think he's there next season.
Not only do I think he's there, but I think they build a team around him for next season. I think a lot of players will go, but he at Chelsea's got himself into almost certainly the England picture for the Euros. Almost certainly he has. Yeah.
Do you think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because I don't think it's definite that he does go.
He is joint top scorer in the Premier League.
I'm not saying that he shouldn't go. I'm saying I just don't think it's definite that he does go.
If he doesn't go, I think.
You think what, Darren? You think what?
Dan's laughing.
You think?
Honestly, there is no way Cole Palmer doesn't go to the Euros. Honestly,
I think if Cole Palmer goes, I think Rashford doesn't.
If Cole Palmer doesn't go, I was about to say, I was about to put myself a hostage to fortune, and I probably better not, but. Listen, you might be right about Sterling because Palmer's gone there and overshadowed everybody. Rashi, I think he will go because Southgate trusts him. But just on Palmer, I mean, he is the breakout star this season. And he will win the Young Player of the Year award. And he's a serious contender for the main award as well. So... It's inconceivable that he doesn't go to the Euros. And I was saying all of that to say all of that happened for him in a Chelsea shirt. He's only really leaving to go to one of the superpowers. But Real Madrid have got Rodrigo playing in this position. And Jude Bellingham playing in the 10, ripping it up, scored in the Clasico the other day. Another Clasico in his debut season. So all the positions where Cole Palmer could play for a club like that, That's not happening.
No,
there.
okay, I was just being mischievous and just thinking it's a mess around him. He might be thinking, I need to get out of it. I need to move on. And Zidane's just gone to United, spending 300 million. I want to go there.
Here's one for you. And I am being mischievous here. There's no truth or whatever in it. If Salah goes to Saudi and Liverpool say to Cole this summer,
well, there you go. You answered my question. I don't think he does leave this summer. I think he'll be there, but I just don't think it's
that would be interesting.
Wild to suggest that someone thinks, can we get him out of there?
Yeah,
120 mil, put it down. Chelsea make a crazy profit. If he wants a transfer request, becomes difficult. Just saying.
I don't think he is a difficult.
No, I don't think he is either. I'm just being against
that would
you.
be interesting.
Finally, on the football, Arsenal. At the point of recording, this is before they play Chelsea tonight. I'm nervous in as far as Arsenal are playing their two biggest rivals, who both have nothing to play for other than ending Arsenal's season.
No, that's not true.
What have Chelsea got to play for?
Europe.
Come on.
What?
Chelsea they're not driven by trying to be in the Europa Conference League. That doesn't drive them.
It doesn't necessarily, but European football, from the ashes of what had been a shambolic campaign.
All right, maybe, and I don't think Spurs get top four. I think Villa have got that now.
What, so they should just go and play
No, I'm
hard?
not saying that. I'm just saying the motivation is different to if they were going for top four or if Chelsea were in a cup final, their seasons will well and truly be alive.
Jordan. Villa have got 66 points.
Yeah.
And Spurs have got 60 points.
Yeah.
Spurs have got 2 games in hand.
And who's the more consistent of the two teams?
I don't understand what you're saying. Before the last 2 wins,
Yeah.
Aston Villa had 1 win from their previous 5.
Mm-hmm.
So,
And now?
well, they've won their last 2.
Right, at the time when it matters,
Wait a minute. Who's to say that Spurs can't win their next 2?
because I'm going on their previous form of getting smashed by Newcastle. They lost another game recently to Fulham a few weeks ago. I'm just looking at their form overall, and I'm seeing one team that is consistent and one team that isn't.
But they've had 15 days to rest.
Spurs?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Well, it means that they come into this game fresh. The players that may have been injured, I know that Destiny Udogi's out for the rest of the season, but there have been players who will come back into this game fresh and mentally fresh as well as physically fresh. And I just see an opportunity for them at their own stadium against their big rivals to really, in fact, for them it's bigger motivation, to get back. And then suddenly they win that game and they're 3 points behind Villa. And then who's to say they can't win that next game as well?
I think the smart man is on Villa. So, all right, maybe I'll edit that to their season. Their motivation will be to not want to see Arsenal win the title. So they want to stop Arsenal win the title. You don't agree with that?
No, I think their motivation is to get the Champions League. For years, and I covered Spurs, and so I was part of press conference where that would be the overriding motivation. But I think the more professional they get, the more they look at their own objectives. And certainly in those seasons when they did manage to get Champions League football, that had been their objective. The older heads are like, yeah, Arsenal this, Arsenal that. But actually, and it helps them even more. Yes, you appreciate the scale of the fixture and the emotion around it and what the fans want you to do. But the most important thing for Tottenham right now is to stay focused on their objective. And that objective is to win a Champions League place.
So you've put that case for Chelsea and Spurs having wider motivation than just stopping Arsenal. Do they do it?
Chelsea, no. Tottenham, possibly. If Cole Palmer doesn't play for Chelsea, they will not beat Arsenal. Arsenal will beat them comfortably by a couple of goals.
I mean, I'd argue even with Cole Palmer, they beat Chelsea.
Possibly. But, I've seen Chelsea. The thing about Chelsea is that they just don't have it within them to concentrate for 90 minutes. And they might do it in the odd game. But I think if you look throughout, certainly since the turn of the year, they've averaged, in terms of conceding, 2 goals a game. They conceded 2 against Burnley. They conceded 2 against Sheffield United, and they're both going to be relegated. Mm-hmm. And then some people are saying Burnley are going to stay up. They're not staying up.
They're done.
But I think as far as Spurs are concerned, they have the forward line and the creativity in midfield to really challenge Arsenal. And I think that's going to be a fascinating game on Sunday.
Okay, come on, you Arsenal. Enough football chat now. Let's keep it moving. Next up, we're going to be talking about St. George's Day. Yay! Okay, so the point of recording, this is St. George's Day, for those that means something to. And I wanted to have just a quick chat with you, Darren, about that, and ask the question: do you think it's possible to remix and rebrand a flag? So we're talking about St. George's flag here. I always hear about black people saying, we want to reclaim the N-word. We want to turn it into, we can say it because it's a positive. I hear a lot of gay people say, queer. We want to reclaim the term queer as a positive thing. My first thing is always, how can you reclaim something that was never positive in the first place? But that's that's an aside. Do you think it's possible to rebrand what the St. George's flag means to modern day Brits and English people in particular?
I know there's a lot of emotion around flags, and we saw that with the attempt to rebrand, reconfigure the brand on the back of the England shirt the other day. Now, I am also aware, and it has to be pointed out at this point of our conversation, that there are lots of people who use these debates as cover for something a lot more sinister. And lots of people get dragged in. They don't see what is being intended, and they allow themselves to be dragged into negative shouting matches around culture war content. So I don't want to do that. I do believe that we live in a multicultural society, a tolerant multicultural society, that sometimes is hoodwinked by the kind of people who would have us believe that people who love their country are knuckle-dragging thugs who think negatively towards people who look like me and you. But it is possible to have that pride in your country. It is possible to have that love for your flag. The problem for the flag in this country is very often, sadly, it has been hijacked by people. Now, I know this from my travels abroad. You know this as well from going to watch England play in different countries. It's been hijacked by people who tarnish it. And by that, I mean this. Been to so many countries where English people move away from football fans who come along, drape the St. George's cross across wherever they're sitting or whatever, and they're boozing, and then their fights break out, and suddenly they brought shame on the country. And so as an observer, for me, it is fascinating to watch English people who just want to go and sit and speak to locals and have fun and respect the local culture, be appalled by the conduct of other people who basically say probably they're more allegiant to the flag than you are, but bringing shame on it. That association is the thing. And there are lots of people who would say, why do we need to rebrand the flag? You know, we love our country. And I respect everybody. I'm not going to say anything negatively about people who love the flag. But is it possible to rebrand it? I think it is, in a multicultural society, in a society that embraces so many things. And despite the best attempts of those who wish to divide us, a society that has moved on, it is possible to rebrand it, yeah.
Is there a flag that you do feel particularly aligned to? So, you know, growing up in my grand's house, there would always be, you know, ornaments and images of the Jamaican flag. My family's of Jamaican heritage. Is that the same with you? Or Jamaican heritage?
No, my family are from St. Vincent in the West Indies.
So is the St. Vincent flag something that you are particularly connected to and see as a part of your identity?
I'm just not a flag person.
No,
I'm just not a flag person. I think partly because I just... Well, no. There isn't any. I could confect a reason right now.
Sure,
there isn't.
don't do that.
There isn't a reason.
So
I'm just not a flag
let's have a bit
person.
of fun just quickly on this one then. So if you could rebrand the England flag, and let's also say the national anthem, what would the England flag
Oh my gosh.
look like that represents modern day England, and what would the national anthem be that represents modern day England?
Gosh, I have no idea. Um, I have no idea. You'll have to come back to me for that one. I've got no idea.
I was thinking on the way. I was thinking if I was in charge of rebrand, I don't particularly care about flags either.
Yeah.
If someone said, Jordan, you're in charge, you can redesign the English flag to represent England today. What would I do? I don't know what color scheme would I have. I wouldn't have a cross. Would it be circles? Would there be a person?
Yeah.
I don't know. Would it be a crowd? Would it be? I don't know what it would be.
Be interesting. If you're watching,
And
it's just
music-wise,
in the comments. Give us some suggestions to this, because I think certainly I have kids, and my children have a cross section of friends. They aren't all from one demographic. They do have lots of different perspectives. They do have lots of different outlooks on life. And I think for the older generation, a lot of the things that are symbolic and synonymous with the flag, they're not important to younger people these days. So I think there would be a whole host of things that would comprise an England flag, and in terms of what the anthem would be. Gosh, don't get me started.
How do you merge orchestral with grime? How do you mix drum and bass with pop? You know,
Exactly.
the fusion, man.
K-pop.
Oh, love it. K-pop over here. All right. Something that is serious. This morning, the Rwanda bill was passed. It's been discussed for years now, but it seems Rishi Sunak, the Prime Minister, has got the bill through. The point of recording, this was this morning, which means that there will be planes, of which he says, I believe, within the next 10 to 12 weeks, that will be taking off and leaving for Rwanda. I think we've spoken before on this pod about this particular bill, and anyone that knows us knows our politics and what we think of this particular bill. But I guess there's two questions I have. First one is, what do we think this says about this government, but also this country? But secondly, the economic suicide this seems to be. So forget the moral argument of why this is just wrong for me. Economically, this is our money that we're spending to send these planes. Why do you think the government is still making the economic decision, although knowing, I think it's £2 million per person, there's like 20 people, 30 people that they're going to send on the first plane? Why do you think, knowing that, they're still insistent on doing what they're doing?
We are in the grip of a racist far-right government. And this is a moment of great shame for this country. I remember when I was a kid and we used to joke, we used to have dark humour because that was all we had in the 70s around the National Front and their campaigning to rid this country of people who look like us. And now those people are in government, and they might wear nice suits and they might be articulate with their words. Some of them are brown people themselves, but they all pursue an ideology that has ended up with this. And I know lots of people are saying, you know, if one flight, a commercial airline, takes off with those people on them, I will never travel on the airline again. There are things you can do, yeah. But I think it's a wider point about what it says about where we are as a country. Because the kind of people that are going to be sent back aren't just people on boats. It's people who might have helped, you know, translators who might have helped in Afghanistan, you know, people who have worked in the service for this country who are going, you know, it doesn't matter, you're going back. And almost what it does and what it's doing is completing the cycle that we already know to be the case. And lots of people watching this, our parents came over here, helped to build up the help service, drive buses, did all sorts of jobs to rebuild this country after the war, only to be told during Windrush, which is ongoing, let's not forget, no, you got to go back. Where are your papers? Doesn't matter what you did, where you lived, who you brought up, this, that, and the other. You got to go back. And I think a lot of the people who might be saying yes, but this and yes, but this should remember this. What they're voting for those people that they want to see on those flights is what they're voting for themselves, because a government will always try to see what they can get away with. And if they can get away with that for refugees, they can get away with that for you.
Yeah, it's I think I'll go back to your kind of first comment about this being a very dark day for this country, and the fear for many, maybe not my generation, but generation before me, so my parents, definitely my grandparents, having the fear that one day we could get shipped back off. And we've seen it, as you mentioned, the Windrush, it's happening. That for me is very, very concerning. And this is, I'm just kind of bit of a mind dump here. I have a really strong, irrational, maybe rational hatred. And there's not many things or people that I hate. But when I see black and brown people, forget the government, but just people that are normal citizens advocating for this as well, the feeling and the vitriol I feel towards these people is really strong, because the idea that, and I get we're not all a homogenous group, but the idea that you could be in favour and supporting a policy that sends black and brown people, you said back to Rwanda. Most of these people have never been to Rwanda.
Did I say back to
Rwanda? You did, but that's okay. No, that's fine. But that's what makes it even worse.
Absolutely.
Do you know what I mean?
Because they don't care where Rwanda is just an arbitrary country, just as long as you don't come here. Of course it is.
Just go as far away as possible to that African country and just buy.
Yeah.
The fact that there's people that look like us and come from our communities that are in favour, and there's a lot of those people, it makes me angry.
And in some ways, elements of our media are to blame as well. And I'm within the media structure, but I'm just going to say it, because I see too many anchors and people just asking the questions rather than getting into the basic humanity of it. Stop the boats, and continuing with this discourse, which means that we wake up every morning seeing people thinking that they're being progressive and hard-hitting, asking, why are you not stopping the boats? And there are probably people on their production teams whose parents are immigrants, whose parents have come to this country, made a life for themselves. And stopping the boats is a kind of euphemism for curtailing immigration. That's what it is. And it isn't just the politicians who are at fault in that regard. I think we have a media culture that just follows the narrative, ticks the boxes, but doesn't look enough at the basic humanity. And then those people feel that they're progressive, when in fact they've made life worse for us. And we were always headed this way, Jordan, when you had on national television the Home Secretary giving a speech at the party conference where she's talking about us in the most vile terms, in language that should have been confined to the 70s under Enoch Powell, and that's on national television. We were always headed this way. And I'm sorry, but it hurts. It's a sad, sad day. And all the people who are cheerleading for this, it's sad, because we're seeing now that the government have started along this path of what they can get away with, and you have to wonder where it will stop.
And just to wrap as well on that, the kind of the sick irony of this is that whilst the bill was being passed a few hours ago, the numbers and figures came that there were 8 more people that had died trying to cross the channel, like this morning. Do you know what I mean? It's
And the worst thing about that, is that the politicians and the cheerleaders for this
Would use that
don't,
as like, that's why
they
we-
don't care. They don't, as long as they don't get into this country, they don't care. And what they do is they use the politics of fear, just as they did in the 70s, where you would get people saying, if you want a black man to live next door to you, vote for Labour.
No, vote Labour,
For
sorry.
Labour. You know, we don't want that. If you want a black person to take your job, marry your wife, marry your kids, vote for Labour, don't vote for... We cannot have a general election in this country soon enough, because we need to purge this country of the people who are burning it to the ground, who are dividing us, who are devoid of basic humanity, who don't care about those people who have died in the Channel, as long as they don't get into this country.
And if you missed our pod last week, we had a discussion around for black people in particular, alternative solutions, one being to leave the country, and I accept that's not an option for every person. Everyone can't just pack up a bag and go to the Caribbean or to the African continent, but it's something that more and more people are having to strongly consider, because they don't want to be here. They don't want to be in a country where the government are doing this.
But see, I ever so slightly disagree.
Go on.
I don't think they don't want to be in the country. They just don't want to be under this government.
That's what I mean.
And I
Yeah.
think that's not even the case for black people. I see a lot of white people. I see a lot of people of other races looking at this saying, not in my name, not in my name. I do not subscribe to the mendacity, the divisiveness, to the hate being espoused by this government, the lack of humanity from not in my name. And I think that we've grown up in this country. We love this country, and I don't want to go down that route that leads other people to say, "Oh, yeah, this country," whatever. Those who set out to divide us want that discourse.
Yes, but I think if this is what is going to be happening, I think a lot of people, you're right, black and white, may get to a point where there is a binary decision to be made. It's for those that can afford it. I'm talking about those people. Either I stay or I go.
What we're seeing is a rise in populist authoritarian governments across Europe. You know, there are problems in France, there are problems in Germany, there are problems in Spain, problems right across. You go to Eastern Europe, I've been to Eastern Europe, you know, there are problems everywhere at the moment. So it's really about people using their power at the ballot box to change the status quo, to look at what's being done to every area of our society and to ask themselves, is this what I want to grow up in? Because these guys, they will burn this country to the ground, then they'll go off into the private sector and make even more money than the money that they've taken out of this country. But everyday life, for you, me, everybody watching this pod, is going to continue to get worse. We do have the power to change that, and they know that, which is why they won't call a general election. But when they do, we have to take the power to change the things we can.
Okay, yeah, sad day, I agree with that. Let's move on now. Next up is Talk Me or Talk. All right, so Darren's been away for like 2 months now, so it's his turn to come up with a Talk Me or Talk. This is the bit where we bring something to the table, we take it in turns. Something a little bit off radar you might have missed, that's not political, that's not to do with sport, and hopefully a bit light-hearted and a nice way to end the pod. What you got this week, Darren?
Well, it's very simple, actually, and thankfully very light-hearted, because I looked and I watched with admiration. Tunde Onakoya is a Nigerian 29-year-old, if I'm not mistaken, and he broke the Guinness World Record for playing chess in New York 60 hours straight. He played it for, and he did it to raise money. He wants to raise $1 million to fund education research in Africa, but also to teach young people to play chess as well. And it did set me thinking. I love playing chess, and I do play games at home with my kids, but I was just thinking, we don't do that enough, do we? When's the last time you played any kind of board game? And if you're watching this, answer the question for us as well, because I think we've lost that. And at home, we've got a little cupboard. We've got all sorts of board games in there. I used to love it when I was a kid. Ludo. I wasn't that great at Monopoly. I never had the patience.
That's the only
for
one
Monopoly.
that I really did play when I was young with the family.
Really?
Yeah.
Arguments?
Oh yeah, of course. Because the man was teething and slipping little notes under. The banker was feeding the auntie or something because she cooked him a little food later. You know what I mean? So everyone was always cheating on Monopoly. There was never. And one thing about Monopoly, you're right. I did have the patience, but they never ended. Those you never.
That was it. It never
ended. Like no, there was no winner. And the whole point is that one person's supposed to be left over.
That's right.
With all the property and all the money, but. You got to invest a lot of time, but that was the only one I really played with family.
The one I used to
my family
love,
did play more games.
and that was the one where you had the little pop thing in the middle, and it had a dice in there, and then
yeah,
and then you had to go around all the way around, and then you got home again. But obviously, you had to go past other people's houses, and then if they came out, they chased you, and if they landed on you, you had to go back home and that kind of thing. It was really simple, but very effective. I did love that one. Operation, I loved. And actually, I do you never played Operation? You've never played Operation?
I don't think so.
Dan behind the camera, have you played Operation? Yeah, honestly, MB Games. So basically,
and I know what it is, but I just never played it. You know what I mean?
So Operation, if you don't know, like you've been living on the moon, like
I know the game. It's a game I never actually partook in.
So you had a thing, and you had a couple some tweezers, and you had to reach into this board which had little shapes cut out, like wishbone, funny bone, fibula, tibia. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you had to reach in and take them out, and if you touch the sides, the board would buzz, and then obviously you had to hand over the tweezers to the opposition.
A couple of games that I did play with the family. One was Connect 4.
Yeah,
that was always a good one. And the other one was, what's the brick one that you build up?
Oh, Jenga.
Yeah. You know what I mean? That was always fun with the family. And even Twister. Did Twister a couple of times with the family? No.
Twister. No. That's not for me. Bending over, bending forward. I always used to think that people's modesty was a bit too compromised by.
That's part of the fun.
Yeah, that was not for
you,
me.
no.
No, and sometimes I remember once my sister plays Twister, and then I said, you have to reach over there. She went, what? You must be joking. I'm not doing that. That's not happening.
We played that a couple of times, and obviously the ultimate game for Jamaicans, but Caribbeans, they're still played now. It's dominoes.
Yeah,
dominoes is like that is not even like a family occasion game. That's just like Tuesday. Do you know what I mean? For certain people.
I remember actually because I went to Jamaica last year for the Windrush celebrations, and when I was leaving the airport, and there were these guys outside the airport, the hotel for the airport, and there was these guys outside playing, and I always used to think it was a bit of a, obviously you slammed them, but these guys were just
table got mash up.
Yeah, absolutely. Table got mash up. So fun to watch, but the games wise, I
you know why?
What I do with the. Yeah, I know. It's the worst thing in the world, and if I could, I would melt all smartphones. I'd put them all into a big incinerator and melt them all. Get back to actually playing with each other, talking to each other, having fun, because it's gone now. We try sometimes to have games night at home, but if it's between, I suppose lots of people do. If it's between games night and Netflix,
computer games,
sets, so many things have just robbed us of that time that we used to spend together laughing. We do play cards, Uno, that kind of thing.
Cards, of course. Yeah.
And obviously there was a terrific night at the Ace Exchange the other day where Anthony Joshua had a
Yes, I heard about that.
That was terrific. But I think just in general terms, I would love to see people put on games events, because if you go on to Instagram, and if you're watching this on Instagram, you'll know there is a couple of accounts that promote really good games. I know that the one I like is the cups one, where you have 2 rows of people, and you've got some cups on the floor, and you touch your shoulders, knees, head, nose, cup, and then you got to reach for the cups. And
what is this?
Simple, but really. Don't be behind the glass.
He's laughing. I won't be playing that one, but whatever floats your boat.
I think I might have described it very bad.
I think you probably did. But you're right. We need to bring back games for the family home. Darren, thanks for your time. Good to see you again. As per, don't forget to subscribe to us here on YouTube, on Instagram, or on TikTok, and of course share on your favourite podcast platform. I'm sure Hugh will be back next week. Until then, take care. Peace.